Have you ever sat in a completely quiet room, looking at a wall, and felt a stillness so heavy it almost hurt? Not because anything dramatic just happened in that exact second, but because the constant, exhausting effort of keeping everything together suddenly stopped working. It is that precise moment when the noise of the world fades away and you are left alone with an undeniable truth. The life you were building, or the person you were trying so hard to be for everyone else, has fractured under the weight of expectations. You look down at your hands, feeling an unsettling disconnect from the person looking back at you in the mirror. You ask yourself, how did I get here? When did I drift so far from who I used to be? You spent months, maybe even years, placing everyone else's comfort above your own peace. You became the shoulder to lean on, the one who never breaks, the one who always figures it out. But in becoming everything for everyone else, you slowly abandoned yourself. You kept running on empty, convincing yourself that if you just tried a little harder, if you just gave a little more, the hollow feeling inside would disappear. Instead, the cracks quietly widened. It didn't happen with a loud explosion. It happened in the quiet moments, when you smiled through tears on your drive home, when you swallowed your own hurt to keep the peace, or when you lay awake at night staring at the ceiling, feeling an aching loneliness, even in a room full of people. The collapse is rarely loud. It is a slow, silent erosion of your spirit, until one day you simply run out of strength to pretend anymore. Sitting in those ruins feels terrifying. It feels like you have failed, like you are somehow broken beyond repair. But feeling completely broken is not the end of your story. It is the raw, honest beginning of turning back toward yourself. It is the moment the artificial survival mechanisms you built finally fall away, so that the real, authentic you can breathe again. You don't have to have all the answers today. You don't have to know how the whole picture looks, or how every piece will fit back together. You only have to be willing to meet yourself right here in the quiet, without judgment, without shame, and without rushing to hide your pain. If you are sitting with that heavy feeling right now, I want you to take a slow, deep breath. Let your shoulders drop. Let the exhaustion be real. But let hope be real too. You are still here, and that means your story is far from over. I invite you to leave an affirmation in the comments below, right now. I am ready to rebuild, piece by piece. Let those words be your anchor today as we take this gentle step forward together. Rebuilding never begins with fixing. It begins with standing completely honest in the middle of the ruins. Most of us spend an overwhelming amount of energy pretending we are fine when every single part of us feels shattered. We wear an invisible armor every day just to survive. You get up, you get dressed, you keep up with your daily commute, you answer routine questions with a polite smile, and you make small talk while paying for groceries, all while carrying an unbearable weight inside your chest. You act as though your world isn't falling apart because you are terrified of what might happen if you let the truth slip out. Think about how many times someone asked you how you were doing, and without even thinking, you said, "I'm good, just tired." But it wasn't the kind of tiredness that a good night's sleep could fix. It was a deep, bone-weary exhaustion of the heart. You might find yourself staring blankly at an unfinished project on your desk, paralyzed by the thought of starting, or sitting in your parked vehicle long after arriving home, staring through the windshield, unable to gather the strength to step outside and face the evening. You sit there in the dark car, listening to the engine cool down, wishing the world would just stop moving for a little while so you could catch your breath. We live in a culture that demands quick recoveries. We are told to stay positive, to move on, to look for the silver lining before we have even had a chance to grieve what we lost. So we attempt to paste a fake sense of optimism over genuine heartache. We try to force ourselves to be healed before we have even processed the wound. But ignoring the fracture doesn't make it disappear. It only forces you to walk with a limp, constantly guarding a pain that never gets the chance to mend properly. Trying to rush your healing or pretend that you are strong when you feel broken only delays the moment you actually begin to heal. To acknowledge the fracture means to stop running from the reality of your current state. It means sitting down on the cold floor of your reality and saying, "Right now, I am hurting." And that is okay. It is acknowledging that the plan failed, that the relationship ended, that the dream changed, or that you simply cannot keep living the way you have been living. There is an immense, quiet courage in dropping the pretense. When you finally stop trying to convince yourself and everyone else that you have it all together, a strange sense of relief settles over you. You no longer have to carry the exhausting performance of being unshakable. Admitting that you are broken is not an act of defeat. It is an act of profound self-respect. It is the moment you look at your life with complete clarity and say, "I am not going to pretend anymore. I am going to honor where I am, even if where I am is painful." You cannot rebuild a house if you refuse to admit that the foundation has cracked. By giving yourself permission to feel the depth of your disappointment, your sorrow, and your fear, you create the soft, compassionate space needed for true restoration to take root. You allow yourself to be human, fragile, and imperfect, knowing that acknowledging the break is the very first step toward making yourself whole again. For a very long time, you likely wore a version of yourself that was designed purely for survival and approval. It was a carefully crafted mask, a version of you that knew exactly when to smile, what to say, and how to act so that no one around you would ever feel uncomfortable, disappointed, or burdened. You became the reliable friend who never complains, no matter how heavy their own heart feels. You became the dedicated worker who quietly takes on extra tasks, staying late into the night because you believe your worth is tied to how much you can produce. You became the peacemaker who buries their own boundaries and discomfort just to avoid the slightest hint of conflict. To the outside world, you looked strong, capable, and composed. People complimented you on how well you handled everything, how dependable you were, and how nothing ever seemed to shake you. But inside, behind that polished exterior, you were slowly suffocating. Every time you buried your true feelings to keep someone else happy, you chipped away a small piece of your soul. Every time you said yes, when every fiber of your being was desperately crying out no, you betrayed yourself. Over time, that protective mask becomes far too heavy to carry. It begins to press down on your chest, making it hard to breathe, squeezing out your genuine identity until you reach a point where you look in the mirror and realize you don't even know who you are anymore. You forget what actually brings you genuine joy, what your real passions are, or what peace even feels like, because your entire existence has been focused on managing other people's perceptions of you. You built a prison out of approval, and the cost of keeping everyone else comfortable was losing your connection to yourself. The legendary psychologist Carl Jung once observed, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." It is a profound and comforting perspective, but arriving at that truth is often a painful process. It usually requires stripping away all the artificial roles, expectations, and armor you adopted just to feel safe and accepted. It means confronting the quiet, terrifying fear that if you drop the mask, people might not love or choose the real version of you. When those artificial roles finally begin to crumble under the weight of your exhaustion, it feels terrifying. It feels like you are losing your identity, like everything you constructed is falling apart. But the truth is, it isn't your true self that is falling apart. It is only the persona you created to survive. The breakdown of that mask is actually the very first step toward living authentically. It is the necessary space where you stop performing for an audience and start showing up for yourself. Think back to the moments when you felt most invisible while standing right in front of people you care about. Think of the times you swallowed your true thoughts, nodding along with opinions you didn't agree with, or hiding your pain so you wouldn't be seen as too much or too emotional. You convinced yourself that hiding was safety, but living behind a mask only ensures that while people may love the image you present, the real you remains completely unloved, unseen, and unknown. Dropping the mask requires an extraordinary kind of tenderness toward yourself. It means forgiving yourself for hiding for so long, understanding that you only wore that armor because at some point in your life you felt you needed it to survive. But you don't have to carry that weight anymore. You don't have to earn your place on this earth by endlessly pleasing others, shrinking your presence, or pretending to be indestructible. Rebuilding yourself starts when you allow the mask to fall away, piece by piece, and stand gently in your own truth. It means accepting that some people might be disappointed when you stop playing the role they got comfortable with, and being okay with that disappointment. It means recognizing that your worth was never meant to be measured by how useful, silent or accommodating you could be. As you let go of the need to perform, you make room to breathe, to heal, and to finally discover the beauty, strength, and truth of who you were always meant to be. Much of our feeling of being broken comes from the heavy things we carried in complete silence. It is not always the sudden, visible storms that break a person's spirit. Often, it is the slow, quiet accumulation of everything you wanted to say, but felt forced to keep trapped inside your own heart. It is the boundary you desperately needed to set months or even years ago, but were too afraid to voice because you didn't want to cause trouble or push someone away. It is the disappointment you silently swallowed when a companion failed to show up for you during a moment when you needed them most, yet you smiled and told them, "It's fine, don't worry about it," when every part of your being was aching to be seen and supported. Think about how many times you have sat in a quiet car after a difficult conversation, gripping the steering wheel, running through all the words you wished you had been brave enough to speak out loud. Think of the personal goals you quietly abandoned, the passions you hid away, or the boundaries you withdrew simply because someone made a dismissive comment or rolled their eyes. You learned to shrink your feelings to fit into spaces where your truth felt unwelcome. You told yourself that keeping quiet was easier than dealing with conflict, that staying silent was the noble thing to do, or that your needs simply weren't important enough to disrupt the peace. How many times in your life have you looked someone in the eye and said, "It doesn't matter," when in reality, it mattered deeply to your core? How many times have you brushed off your own pain, minimizing your feelings so you wouldn't be perceived as dramatic, difficult, or demanding? Every single unspoken word, every buried boundary, and every suppressed emotional reaction doesn't just disappear into thin air. They accumulate inside you like stone after stone, building a heavy wall around your heart until it feels impossible to breathe freely under the weight of it all. When you constantly bury your real feelings to preserve external peace, those unexpressed emotions turn inward. They don't vanish. They begin to erode your own self-trust. You begin to send a subtle, damaging message to your inner self. My voice doesn't matter. My boundaries are optional. My pain is inconvenient. Over time, this quiet internal betrayal creates a deep sense of powerlessness. You end up feeling trapped inside a life that you designed by staying silent, feeling like a stranger in your own world, because no one around you truly knows what you are carrying or what you are quietly enduring behind your silence. Carrying the weight of unspoken words eventually fractures your spirit because it forces you to live in opposition to your truth. You walk around with a lump in your throat and a heavy tightness in your chest, constantly filtering your thoughts before they reach your lips, terrified of what might happen if you were completely honest. But holding back your truth doesn't actually create peace. It only creates a quiet, agonizing internal war where you sacrifice your own mental clarity and emotional well-being just to maintain a false sense of harmony on the outside. Rebuilding yourself requires learning to unlearn that silence. It means giving yourself permission to honor your inner voice again, even if it starts as a tiny, trembling whisper telling you what you truly need. It means recognizing that your boundaries, your feelings, your disappointments, and your desires deserve space in this world. Speaking your truth might feel scary at first, especially if you have spent a lifetime staying quiet to keep the peace, but it is the only path back to self-trust and genuine healing. You do not have to apologize for having feelings, and you do not have to shrink yourself to keep others comfortable. The process of becoming whole again demands that you stop burying your voice for the sake of people who only value you when you are silent. As you begin to release those long-held words, whether by writing them down in the quiet safety of a notebook or speaking them firmly and clearly to the people in your life, you will feel that heavy tightness in your chest begin to soften. You will realize that your truth was never something to be ashamed of. It was the very key to unlocking your freedom and reclaiming your life. When everything in your life feels completely ruined and shattered, trying to fix your entire existence at once is an overwhelming, impossible burden. When your spirit is broken, even the thought of tomorrow can feel like an insurmountable mountain. You look at the tangled mess of your career, your relationships, your health, or your finances, and you feel paralyzed by the sheer size of the mountain standing in front of you. You tell yourself that in order to heal, you need a massive transformation, a complete overhaul, or a grand gesture that changes everything overnight. But trying to leap from complete brokenness straight into a perfect, restructured life only leads to deeper exhaustion and failure. Rebuilding yourself does not happen in giant, heroic leaps. It happens quietly, slowly, and almost invisibly in the micro moments of your everyday existence. You do not need to figure out the next 10 years today. You do not even need to map out the next 6 months. Healing begins when you pull your focus back from the daunting, uncertain future and bring it entirely into this very moment, into the smallest, simplest habits that remind you that you are still alive, still worthy, and still capable of gentle action. Returning to the smallest habits means learning to honor the tiny acts of care that seem almost too small to matter. It is making yourself a simple, warm cup of water first thing in the morning and sitting quietly by the window for 5 minutes without looking at a screen, reading the news, or letting the noise of the world invade your mind. It is choosing to step outside your front door and take a 10-minute walk around the block, not to meet a fitness goal or track your steps, but simply to feel the cool, fresh breeze against your skin and remind yourself that the earth is still turning beneath your feet. Think about how many times you have ignored the small things because you believed they were insignificant. You thought, what difference does it make if I make my bed? What difference does it make if I take 5 deep breaths? But when you are broken, those small acts are not just routines. They are powerful declarations of self-love. Finishing one single, uncomplicated task, like organizing a scattered stack of papers on your bookshelf, setting out a clean pair of clothes for tomorrow, or gently opening the blinds to let sunlight flood into a dark room, is a quiet victory. That tiny completion serves as a soft, reassuring whisper from your soul, reminding you that you are still capable of creating peace and order out of chaos. When you are deep in emotional pain, your nervous system is constantly overwhelmed, operating in a state of survival. High expectations and heavy to-do lists only add fuel to that internal fire. By stripping away all the grand expectations and focusing exclusively on the smallest habit in front of you, you give your mind a safe place to land. You stop asking yourself to be a hero, and you start allowing yourself to simply be human. You begin to rebuild your shattered self-trust, not by making massive promises you can't keep, but by keeping tiny, gentle promises to yourself every single day. Imagine a house that has been brought down by a storm. You do not rebuild it by trying to raise the entire roof in one afternoon. You rebuild it brick by brick, nail by nail, board by board. Some days, your only contribution to your new foundation will be stepping out of bed, pouring a glass of water, and breathing through a wave of sadness. And that is more than enough. Do not underestimate the profound power hidden within those quiet, repetitive acts of basic care. Allow your rebuilding process to be slow. Let it be humble. Celebrate the fact that you poured the warm tea, that you opened the window, that you folded one piece of clothing, or that you walked to the end of the street and back. These tiny habits are the gentle thread sewing your heart back together, one small stitch at a time. Through these micro moments of kindness toward yourself, you slowly build a solid, unshakable foundation, proving to your weary spirit that piece by piece you are stepping out of the darkness and bringing yourself back to life. When we feel completely broken, our instinct is almost always to run away from the pain. We try to push away our anger, our deep grief, our jealousy, and our bone-deep sadness, treating those heavy emotions like unwelcome intruders in our lives. We tell ourselves that we shouldn't feel this way, that we need to snap out of it, or that showing vulnerability makes us weak. We feel ashamed of our emotional fatigue, frustrated by our inability to just move on, and embarrassed by the messy, dark feelings that surface in our quietest moments. But in ignoring and rejecting the painful parts of your story, you unknowingly leave yourself divided against your own heart. Imagine spending every ounce of your energy trying to hold a heavy, inflated ball underwater. The higher you try to keep your fake positivity, the harder you have to push down on the pain beneath the surface. You end up exhausted, anxious, and completely detached from reality. The parts of yourself that you try so hard to hide, the scared child inside you, the deeply wounded lover, the grieving heart, or the furious spirit. Don't disappear just because you lock them away in the dark. They remain there, quietly influencing your choices, draining your energy, and making you feel like a fraud even when you are trying your hardest to do everything right. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung spent much of his life exploring this exact inner struggle, and he captured its essence profoundly when he wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." It is a liberating truth, but truly embodying that choice requires something counterintuitive. You cannot choose who you are becoming if you refuse to acknowledge where you have been. You cannot step into a bright future while leaving half of your soul locked away in the shadows of your past. Your pain, your mistakes, and your darkest moments are not trash to be thrown away. They are parts of your life story that are begging for your compassion and understanding. Integrating the shadow simply means opening your arms to the parts of yourself that you were taught to hate, hide, or ignore. It means sitting down with your anger and asking it, "What are you trying to protect me from?" It means letting your sadness flow without trying to fix it immediately or apologizing for your tears. It means looking at your past failures, your heartbreaks, and your moments of weakness, not with judgment, but with gentle, unconditional kindness. When you stop fighting your own history, the internal war finally ends, and the energy you spent running away can finally be used to rebuild your life. Think about how much lighter you would feel if you didn't have to pretend to be correct, happy, or unbothered all the time. Think about the relief of stepping out of the harsh light of perfection and allowing yourself to be a whole, complex human being. You are allowed to be both strong and heartbroken. You are allowed to be hopeful for tomorrow while still missing what you lost yesterday. You are allowed to be a work in progress who still carries scars from the battles you barely survived. Your painful experiences and dark seasons are not proof that you failed at life. They are proof that you lived, felt deeply, and possessed the incredible courage to survive the unthinkable. They are the fire that forged your capacity for true empathy, depth, and resilience. To become whole again, you don't need to eliminate your dark chapters. You simply need to weave them into the larger, beautiful tapestry of who you are today. When you welcome every piece of your journey back home into your heart, you discover that the very shattered pieces you once tried to discard are the strong, steady foundation upon which your true self is built. Part of feeling completely shattered often comes from a long, quiet history of allowing your personal spaces, your energy, and your heart to be entirely consumed by external demands. You gave and gave and gave until there was nothing left of you to give. You made yourself endlessly available to everyone else's emergencies, opinions, and emotional storms, while leaving your own well-being completely unprotected. You allowed people to step across your comfort zones because you were terrified that saying no would make you look selfish, cold, or unloving. But when you live with wide open, unprotected borders, you end up letting the whole world walk through your soul in muddy boots, leaving you feeling emotionally bankrupt and deeply resentful. Think back to all those times you forced a smile and agreed to attend social gatherings, host events, or take on extra obligations despite feeling utterly exhausted on the inside. Think about the phone calls you answered when every cell in your body was crying out for quiet, or the times you apologized for someone else's disrespect just to keep the peace. You thought that by sacrificing yourself, you were building strong, loving relationships. But love that requires your complete self-destruction is not real love. It is an unhealthy trade where you pay with your peace of mind just to stay connected. When you are in the delicate process of rebuilding yourself, you must come to a gentle, firm realization. Your energy is a finite, precious resource, and not everyone earns access to it. Redefining your boundaries is not about building an angry wall to push people away or punish them for past mistakes. It is about placing protective, loving fences around your time, your heart, and your mental clarity so that your true self has a safe space to heal, breathe, and grow back stronger. Saying no to things that drain your spirit is not an act of selfishness. It is the fundamental, non-negotiable act of preserving the life force required to put your shattered world back together. It is choosing to stop pouring from an empty cup. When you begin to establish clear, healthy boundaries, you send a profound signal directly to your own nervous system. My peace matters. My feelings are valid. My life is worth protecting. Setting boundaries, when you are used to being a people pleaser, will feel uncomfortable, scary, and almost unnatural at first. You might feel a heavy pang of guilt the first time you leave a text message unanswered until you have the energy to respond. You might feel your heart race when you tell a friend, "I can't make it tonight. I need to rest." Or when you tell a family member, "I'm not comfortable discussing this topic." You might worry that people will leave, get angry, or speak ill of you behind your back. And the truth is, some people who benefited from your lack of boundaries might indeed react poorly when you start setting them. When someone gets upset because you set a boundary, they are not upset at you. They are upset that they can no longer freely access the energy you used to sacrifice for them. The people who truly value, love, and respect you will welcome your boundaries because they want you to be healthy, peaceful, and whole. They will honor your no as much as they celebrate your yes. Rebuilding yourself demands that you become the fierce protector of your own internal environment. It means curating what you allow into your personal sanctuary, the conversations you engage in, the media you consume, the obligations you accept, and the people you invite into your personal space. You are allowed to take a step back. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to guard your quiet time as if your life depends on it, because during a season of deep recovery, it truly does. As you practice setting these gentle boundaries, that suffocating weight in your chest will begin to lift. You will no longer wake up with that sense of dread, wondering whose emotional crisis you will have to solve today. You will reclaim your time, your focus, and your emotional stability. By teaching the world how to treat you, you teach yourself that you are worthy of respect, privacy, and profound, uninterrupted peace. When you have spent years living according to outside expectations, managing everyone else's reactions, and trying to keep the peace at all costs, you quietly lose touch with your own intuition. That soft, wise inner voice, the one that used to tell you what felt right, what felt wrong, and where you truly belonged, becomes drowned out by the endless noise of other people's opinions. You find yourself standing at crossroads, large and small, completely paralyzed by indecision. You look outside of yourself for answers that can only ever be found within, endlessly asking friends, family, or partners for their permission and validation before trusting your own judgment. Think back to a time in your life when you knew, deep in your gut, what choice was right for you. You felt that quiet, steady truth stirring in your chest. But then fear crept in. You worried about disappointing someone, looking foolish, or stepping outside the safe boundaries of what was expected of you. So, you ignored your own instinct. You handed the steering wheel of your life over to someone else, ignoring the deep knot in your stomach, only to end up feeling lost, betrayed, and empty further down the road. Every time you overrode your inner knowing to keep someone else comfortable, you broke a small thread of trust with yourself. When you are feeling broken, that lack of self-trust makes everything feel terrifying. You doubt your ability to make good choices. You replay past mistakes over and over in your mind, convincing yourself that because things turned out painfully before, you can no longer be trusted to guide your own life. But the truth is, your internal compass was never destroyed. It was only buried under the heavy rubble of fear, external noise, and the belief that everyone else knew what was best for you better than you did. Reclaiming your internal compass means turning your attention inward once again, turning down the volume of the outside world so you can finally hear your own heart speak. It means recognizing that no one else lives inside your skin. No one else feels your pain, carries your history, or dreams your dreams. Other people can offer advice based on their own experiences, fears, and limitations, but they can never navigate your path for you. You are the only true author of your journey, and it is time to take the pen back. Learning to trust yourself again starts in the quiet, simple moments of decision. It is sitting down with your options, placing a hand over your heart, and asking yourself, what brings me peace? What honors my truth? It means listening closely to how your body responds to different paths, Your intuition doesn't speak in loud, frantic, anxious demands. It speaks in a calm, steady, quiet certainty. Anxiety rushes you, pressures you, and fills you with fear. Your true internal compass simply offers a quiet, grounding truth, even if that truth asks you to step into the unknown. Rebuilding self-trust requires immense patience with yourself. It means forgiving yourself for the times you trusted the wrong people, ignored the warning signs, or lost your way. Those moments were not proof of your foolishness. They were painful, necessary lessons that taught you the heavy cost of abandoning your own wisdom. You don't need to have the entire map laid out in front of you today. You don't need to know where the path ends or how every future chapter will unfold. You only need enough light to see the very next small, honest step. As you begin to honor your inner voice again, as you start choosing what feels aligned for you rather than what looks good to others, you will feel a profound sense of relief return to your life. You will stop needing everyone to agree with your choices because you will finally agree with yourself. You will stand firmly in your own skin, trusting that even if you stumble along the way, your inner compass will always, gently and faithfully, guide you back home to who you truly are. Growth is quiet, invisible, and often feels like absolutely nothing is happening at all. When you are deep in the process of rebuilding your life, you will naturally crave speed. You want the pain to end right now. You want to wake up tomorrow feeling completely healed, strong, clear-headed, and untouched by the heavy sorrow that has weighed you down for so long. You look at where you are, and then you look at where you desperately want to be. And the vast, empty space between those two places can feel suffocating. But healing cannot be forced, rushed, or scheduled. You cannot demand that a shattered spirit mend itself on your preferred timeline. We live in a world that praises instant results and quick fixes. We are taught that if something is broken, we should be able to fix it quickly and move on to the next thing. So when your recovery feels slow, messy, and agonizingly quiet, you start to panic. You begin to criticize yourself for not moving fast enough. You get angry at your own tears, frustrated by your lingering exhaustion, and ashamed when a random memory or a minor setback pulls you right back into a wave of deep sadness. You tell yourself, I should be over this by now. Why am I still hurting? Why am I struggling with the same old feelings? What you must realize is that healing is never a straight line. It is a slow, spiraling path of gentle progress, quiet plateaus, and sudden steps backward. You will have days where you feel light, hopeful, and entirely capable of taking on the world, followed immediately by days where pulling yourself out of bed feels like lifting a lead weight. That back and forth movement is not a sign of failure. It is not proof that you are broken again or that your effort was wasted. It is simply the natural, organic rhythm of true emotional recovery. Think of an ancient, magnificent tree enduring a harsh winter. During those cold, dark months, it looks completely dead on the outside. There are no vibrant leaves, no sweet fruit, no visible signs of life anywhere on its branches. But beneath the frozen soil, deep down where no human eye can see, its roots are quietly stretching, holding on tight, and gathering the nourishment it will need to bloom when the warmth finally returns. The tree doesn't panic because it isn't bearing fruit in the middle of winter. It simply honors the season it is in, trusting that life is still moving quietly beneath the surface. You are in your own season of quiet survival right now, and you need to allow yourself that same grace. You cannot rush the setting of a new foundation. Allow yourself the kindness of slow, messy progress. Honor the quiet days when all you managed to do was survive, rest, and breathe through the heavy stillness. Because rest is not wasted time. Rest is often the most vital, productive work your exhausted mind and tired body can possibly do when recovering from years of continuous stress and emotional burnout. Patience in the transition means learning to make peace with the uncomfortable in-between space. It is the strange, fragile space where you are no longer the person you used to be, but you haven't quite become the new version of yourself yet. It is standing in the doorway between your past and your future, feeling vulnerable and uncertain, yet choosing to stay right there without running away. It is learning to speak softly to yourself on the hard days, replacing harsh self-criticism with the gentle comfort you would offer to a dear friend who is hurting. Forgive yourself for the days when you feel fragile. Forgive yourself when the grief returns unexpected, or when you need to step away from the world to gather your energy. You are unlearning years of survival habits, undoing deep patterns of self-neglect, and learning how to love yourself from scratch. That kind of profound inner work takes time, tenderness, and immense courage. Trust the quiet work happening inside you, even when you cannot see the results yet. Every time you choose to be gentle with yourself, every time you allow yourself to rest without guilt, and every time you take one quiet breath through the pain, you are laying another solid brick for your new life. Be patient with your heart. The dawn doesn't rush the night away in a single second. It arrives slowly, softly, and steadily. And just as surely, your light will return. You are not rebuilding yourself simply to return to the old version of who you were. That old version served its purpose. It carried you through difficult seasons, protected you through the storms, and held on tightly enough to get you to this very moment. But you were never meant to stay frozen in that old shape forever. You are meant to build something far stronger, wiser, and more deeply grounded now. The broken pieces of your past, the heartbreaks, the shattered plans, the lost dreams, and the quiet disappointments are not garbage to be hidden away or discarded in shame. They are the raw, precious materials for your new foundation. For so long, you might have looked at your scars as proof of your failure, believing that being broken meant you were somehow damaged goods. But wholeness is not the total absence of scars. It is the courage to embrace every single part of your journey and weave it into who you are. When a porcelain cup breaks and is restored with gold, it becomes far more beautiful and valuable than it ever was before the fracture. The gold doesn't hide the cracks. It honors them. Your scars tell a story of incredible survival. They prove that you faced the fire, that you felt the depth of pain, and that you still possessed the gentle resilience to keep your heart open. Becoming whole again means stopping the endless search for outside validation to feel complete. It is the quiet, profound realization that no job, no relationship, no status, and no outside approval can ever make you feel complete if you are continually abandoning yourself on the inside. You stop waiting for someone else to come along and save you, heal you, or grant you permission to be happy. You become your own sanctuary. You step into the role of your own fiercest protector, your most compassionate friend, and your most steadfast ally. Think about how much energy you spent trying to fit into spaces that required you to shrink, stay silent, or compromise your truth. Becoming whole means stepping out of those suffocating spaces for good. It means allowing yourself to take up room in this world, to speak your truth without apologizing, to set firm boundaries without feeling guilty, and to pursue what brings you genuine joy without needing to justify it to anyone else. You begin to honor your needs, your body, your rest, and your spirit with the same deep devotion you used to give away so freely to others. There is an incredible, quiet power that comes when you stop running from your past and stop fearing your future. As you step forward today, remember that you are capable of holding both your past pain and your future potential in the exact same hands. You can acknowledge the sadness of what you lost while still feeling a fierce, rising hope for everything that is yet to come. You don't have to carry the heavy weight of regret anymore. You can look back at the person you were during your darkest moments with immense gratitude and love, knowing they did the absolute best they could with the tools they had at the time. You are stepping into a chapter where you no longer just survive. You begin to truly live. You are rebuilding a life that feels good on the inside, not just one that looks good on the outside. A life where your mind is quiet, your heart is unburdened, and your spirit is grounded in a deep, unshakable trust in yourself. Take a long, slow, deep breath right now. Feel the steady rhythm of your heart beating inside your chest. Feel the solid earth beneath your feet. You have walked through the darkest, quietest valleys, and you are still standing. Honor how far you have traveled. Celebrate the quiet strength that kept you going when no one else was watching, and take that next gentle, confident step forward into becoming fully, authentically, and beautifully yourself again. You have walked through the quiet collapse, stood in the ruins of your expectations, and let the artificial masks fall away. You have learned to speak your unspoken truth, return to the smallest micro moments of care, and welcome every dark, shadowed corner of your story back into the light. Through setting soft boundaries, honoring your inner compass, and practicing patience. Through the slow transition, you have arrived at the threshold of a new way of being.